Excellent. So once again, hi, good evening. We're back live from the headquarters of Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon, organized by IRONMAN. I am Arseny Chernov. I am the endurance and nutrition coach for this season, and this is the fourth live talk that we're doing on nutrition. There are 25 days before the race, and I'm here to talk about the pre-race nutrition, what should ideally lead you up to the race day, race morning, and I'll share some tips and tricks about the in-race nutrition. I also encourage you to ask questions. Anything that you'd like to know, leave the comments in the video's comments section. Even if I'm not able to address them as we go live, I will still go through all of your questions and respond to them one by one after the live talk. So for those of you that didn't see the previous nutrition talks, we talked 4 months ago, almost 4 months ago, we talked about how to potentially get leaner, because it's very important to be as lean as possible, to be as quick as possible in the race. We talked about recovery. For those that prepared with the coach, you probably already or maybe not with the coach, maybe you read something up in a lot of resources, a lot of books about your training plan. You already probably peaked in terms of the mileage per week. So now it's slowly, gradually going into a period called taper, where you need to give your body some recovery time before the big race. For those of you that are running their first marathon, first time 42K, or those of you that are running 21K, I encourage you to spend some time off, but without significantly deviating from your diet. I'll talk about the last few weeks. It is very important not to gain weight in those weeks that you will tip off on your physical activity, where you will get your taper to its shallowest part, where you'll probably have a few days rest. It's very important to not gain weight before the race. So again, leave your questions in the comment section. I will be happy to address them as they are coming along. Overall, I was running quite a number of marathons. I was doing quite a lot of full Ironman. In fact, just last week I've done an ultra marathon, 166 kilometers. And nutrition is a big preparation that I never prefer to skip. The point being, there are so many variables, there are so many stress factors just a few days before the big race. You don't want to mess up with the digestion. You don't want to mess up with your regular habits. So if I can summarize the first rule of thumb, if you're accustomed to some particular type of food today, some energy gels, some type of electrolyte that you probably take to accompany your runs, do not change anything. So you got 25 days. If you haven't yet thought over the in-race nutrition, for example, Shots is the title sponsor for the nutrition this year. Maybe you should get accustomed to their products. There will be 3 aid stations along the way for the full marathon. There will be one aid station that will, there will be many aid stations. I'm saying those aid stations that will have Shots gels. There will be 3 of them on a full marathon course, and there will be one aid station that provides Shots gels on the half marathon course. So if you're not yet accustomed to a particular energy gel, please buy up some Shots, get accustomed to it, or if you're not going to use this type of gel, start your own exploration. It's very personal. It's mostly flavors and the amount of caffeine that makes this energy gels different. Make yourself accustomed to the energy gels. You will need them on that race day, especially if it's your first time running. You may potentially deplete all your reserves of the glycogen in the body and do something that we know is called hitting the wall, which I really want to make sure that you avoid. Okay, first thing first. What is the common mistake that people do when they are in that taper period? So again, if you're, I hope you had some training plan for the full marathon and for half marathon particularly. I hope you trained with a coach, or maybe striked off some slots in a big calendar. So now you're going to decrease the load, slowly going to decrease the load. You probably are now simulating your run. Again, I'm not going to talk about the details about simulation, but you probably will have a period of 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the training plan, when your load will go down, 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 and then you go into the race to have most fun of it, out of it. So during that time, it is very important that your amount of calories intake, it's all about, our bodies are very smart. So basically, it's all about calories in, calories out, and then the healthy proportion of the macronutrients that constitute our food habits, our diet plan. So it's very important that your calories in is also reduced. So if you're used to running a particular amount of miles a week, take a look. There are many trackers. You probably use some kind of tracker, maybe on your phone that you're wearing on the armband, maybe on your smartwatch. You somehow probably summarize your energy expenditure by just tracking it through some app. So take a look, how much was your average, based on those courses where you train, how much was your average kind of like weekly calorie expenditure through physical activity. So physical activity of running, you can calculate it many ways, but those trackers are pretty precise. So what you can do potentially is figure out what was your, say, for that amount of training, what was the amount of calories that you've taken out. If you felt that you're reducing your weight, that's good. You did not compensate, that's perfect. What I suggest you do is that you then calculate something called your estimated energy requirement, EER. There are lots of calculators online. Just Google for estimated energy requirements, EER. It's very dependent on your personal information. It's like your gender, your height, your age. It gives you also the ability to choose the kind of physical activity level. So what I suggest you do is like take a light activity, physical activity level equals light, and it will give you your estimated energy requirements as if you never actually ran additionally to that. So imagine you have, for example, for me, I would have my EER somewhere about like 2.4 thousand calories. Plus I know that on the course of the week, when I train that much, average mileage is this big. Total calories in that week is, say, maybe, I don't know, 2,000 extra calories through running, because my tracker shows me that. What I can do now is I can calculate my calorie intake for the taper week, knowing that my distance on that week will be reduced. Maybe it will be only 10K, depends on your training plan again. So then I have my daily calorie intake new target, and I want to be very precise to not exceed it. Even actually cut it down maybe 15% or 20%. Again, it's very individual, but I want to make sure that I am not gaining extra kilo or two, or worst case even, I've seen, like, personally, I actually did this mistake. I gained like 2.5 kilos when I was preparing for one of my first IRONMAN. Taper week, and then I didn't calculate my calorie intake. So make sure that you're not gaining weight through the taper week. That's my very important recommendation. So again, to summarize it, calculate your estimated energy requirements, EER, using the light physical activity, and then take a look at your most loaded week using the trackers or your armband, like phone tracker or your smartwatch or something. Take a look at what was your calorie expenditure through running, and then project it, make a small calculation, project it towards what would be your taper week mileage, how long will you run, and then make sure that you understand your EER plus energy expenditure through taper week training, and do not exceed it. In fact, even cut it lower. So this is the way. This is the way to not gain extra weight preparing for the race during the taper week. That's one. All right, let me quickly check on the comment section whether there are any particular questions so I could help you guys address some. What would be the best breakfast to have on race morning? Vivian Ang. Good question. So the best is personal, but I recommend highly loaded carbohydrate, unless you have medical. Again, like I'm a big believer in the non-keto approaches to food, unless there is a medical marker that prevents you from eating carbohydrates. I am advocating for high carbohydrate athletic endurance diets. Sorry, endurance diet for athletes. So my recommendation would be a highly loaded carbohydrate-rich meal, breakfast. We actually shared through a couple of nutrition workshops that we ran together with Culinarian and IRONMAN. We shared a very simple recipe with oatmeal. I will follow up in the comment section with the link that you can use to download that recipe. So stay with me. I will post it there. But in short, highly carbohydrate rich to top up your glycogen stores. Meal, which is not unusual, so you should test it before. On the race morning, do not do anything unusual. This is very important, and I'll talk about the race morning in a couple of minutes. I'll talk about when to take that breakfast in terms of like the short answer: 3 hours before the start line or even earlier. Okay, so that's the short one, but I'll get to that. Okay, so what do we have here? What to eat just a few days before full marathon? Kamal Prakash. Again, Kamal, I encourage you to not eat anything unusual, not eat anything spicy, not eat anything that could disappoint you or screw up your entire preparation for a full marathon. This is a very big event, so you really want to stay as calm as possible. And by the way, I hope you excluded alcohol long time in advance. By the way, this is not only for Kamal, this is for everybody. Alcohol, right now, 25 days out, alcohol could significantly increase the chances, increase the risk of you gaining weight. So I highly recommend getting it out of your diet, unless there's like a very special social function. I would still not say that like it's not possible to drink it. Maybe like a glass of wine if you're a wine drinker. Even the night before the marathon, some people that I know, athletes, they prefer to have like half a glass of wine just to cool themselves down. But alcohol is empty calories. It's very energy dense. It's 7 kilocalories per gram. And if you add it on top of your regular nutrition intake, you increase the risks of you gaining extra weight, which is again compromising your performance, because the heavier you are, it's not just about the gravity, and we talked about that in previous nutrition lives. It's not only about just the bouncing off this planet. You cannot improve the planet's weight. All you can do is like in this relation with our planet Earth, you can only improve your weight. The weight is also imposing extra energy on heating you down. So you will produce, your mass correlates to the energy you need to cool yourself down, and your skin is not eternally expanding, so you're not able to evaporate faster. So you will use much more energy to cool yourself down if you have more weight. This is actually very dangerous in Singapore. So 25 days, try to reduce alcohol. This will reduce the risk of you gaining extra kilo or 2 or 3. This is my very big advice. Okay, more questions. Is it okay? Oh, Peas asks, is it okay to take coffee during a race week? Ha! Race week. I wanted to throw in a pun here about like a race that is as long as a week. So the pre-race preparation, I highly encourage coffee drinkers to get to do something called caffeine fasting. At least it helps me. The reason for that is you will feel at 5 a.m. when the race starts, you will really want to have a coffee, and you will already have a lot of adrenaline. And if you if you don't have coffee, or you have coffee and then you want more, for 42 kilometers, if you're running a full marathon, you will not have any espresso machine. And maybe if you habitually drink 2 cups a day or more, you need to get into the period like for at least 1 week where you don't drink coffee, so that on the race morning when you have your espresso shot or take a caffeine pill, you feel really pumped. And there's a science behind it. It's an adenosine versus caffeine. I will not dive into that. If you want to go into these details, you can go back into our previous nutrition lives. I think we've talked about that. But the idea, my recommendation, personal recommendation, is to go for caffeine fasting the week before the race. Few more questions. Can I have a moderate liquor in the race week? Grace Lim. Grace, I highly recommend to not do any liquor unless there is like a glass of wine type of like drink. The reason for that is just like, again, alcohol is a very, and don't get me wrong, I'm not veering to one side of the fence or another. I'm just saying that alcohol is empty calories. You will increase the risk to gain few hundred extra grams even, or like half a kilo or a kilo. And also when you drink alcohol, your body stops metabolizing the regular food, and the lead out period from the alcohol consumption can take 12 to 18 hours for your body digestive system to normalize it. Also, alcohol causes you unnecessary dehydration. So why would you want to risk all that before? I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, nothing would prevent you from having a set of tequilas on the race evening or on the evening before the race, but I highly anticipate the failure in the morning before. So please, take my advice. There are 25 days. Decrease alcohol consumption as much as possible, unless it's a necessary social function, and then stay in this 25 days as productive in your training plan as possible. Do not deviate from it. Do not go for a massive occasion that can get you away from your goal, because it's a big event. It's like an A race for many of you, so why would you want to risk that? Okay, there's a question from Tun Min. I'm going holiday just 1 week before race. Anything to take note? That's not bad. So depending on where you travel to, time zone changes, no time zone changes, how long is your flight, whether you're at home flying or driving, I don't know, maybe you're going to Malacca and driving or taking a bus, I don't know, it depends. The holiday is your plan, but be mindful about your body's body state. If you're taking a long flight, take a water bottle with you and fill it up in the airport and drink through the entire flight to make sure that the cabin, if it's especially you're traveling somewhere outside, the cabin is not going to dehydrate you. Make sure that you are not trying any super special, again, spicy, too salty, too dangerous type of food. It's always a safe bet to stick to good sources of fat, not taking anything very deep fried. Again, deep frying food increases its calorie intake, its empty calories, and you take an extra fat in, which is usually saturated fat. That increases the risk of the last week's bounce in your last week's weight gain. So try to stay as moderate in the kind of exploit scenario. So when you explore some food or you exploit the known food, I would, in the holiday mode 1 week before the race, I would stick to the exploit without exploring too much. But again, I understand it's still a holiday, so spend some time, enjoy. It's just like stay moderate and be mindful about the calculated energy expenditure, estimated energy requirements, ER. Stay productive in your training plan for your taper week. Do whatever your coach suggests. Do whatever your training plan suggests. And again, if you're flying, especially if it's a long flight, be mindful about the dehydration and rest. Especially swollen legs on the eve of the of the race. It's a bad idea to have it. All right, good questions. How would low carb, high fat help in racing if carbs is the first source of energy that is used? Kelvin Kwok. It's a very theoretical question, Kelvin. Long story short, there are scientific researches that show that there is no benefit in low carb, high fat. It is a very good diet, and a lot of people actually stick to it because they have some medical markers or their personal preferences. But however, treat carbohydrates, and especially in already energy storage form, glycogen, treat it as your pension fund. You're absolutely right. You really want to learn to use the triglycerides stored, especially in between your muscle tissues, to extrapolate that. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do the low carb, high fat diet. So you can use your long, slow distance training. I mean, it's too late with 25 days before the race. But you can use the different approaches to teach your body, because our body teaches, is easy to teach it, to prefer to tap on the triglycerides that we store for energy that are much more energy dense. They are 9 kilocalories per gram, but they require much more oxygen. 2 liters of oxygen per 1 gram of triglycerides yields 9 kilocalories of mechanical energy. Glycogen, we store on average about 400 grams in a, like it's very personal, but like 400 grams of glycogen in liver, in muscles, in blood. 400 grams of glycogen that stores 4 kilocalories in 1 gram. That's 1600 calories of energy stored. So when you deplete that without topping it up, that's what you call the hitting the wall, right? So treat glycogen as your pension fund. Do not tap on it until you need it. Train yourself to use triglyceride, but it's 25 days before the race. That's a theoretical answer for you. And please prefer to talk to maybe your coach if you have any particular medical markers about diabetes, or like you have diabetes in your family. Please consult the nutritionist, consult your consult your GP, and then maybe a low carb, high fat diet is something that is advisable for you. But it's not gaining you anything. It's still scientifically proven that you really need to. Basically, scientifically, in a controlled study, it is proven that their LCHF athletes are not gaining any performance over those athletes that are not doing LCHF. However, I'm not advocating for one or another. It's very personal. All right, is the energy drink loading recommended? Santos Kumar. When is the best time to drink energy drinks like Monster, Red Bull, and etc.? Wait. There is like misconception here. Probably you're speaking about. Okay, let me rephrase what I think you asked. Is like, is it advisable to at all drink caffeinated drinks, like those drinks that have significant amount of caffeine in it? I would argue no, because just no. At the same time, I would remind you that the title sponsor for Stanchart Singapore Marathon 2018 is our 100 plus drinks manufacturer. They will have 100 plus in most of the 8 stations. It is going to be branded as the isotonic. I have it right in here. Actually, you can look it up in the map. The course map will have which 8 stations will have water, which 8 stations will have the isotonic, and which stations will have energy gels and banana. So it's very important that you structure your carbohydrate and electrolyte intake throughout the race. I personally advise drinking water and taking, like my advice is to drink water, take electrolytes in form of pills. You need it for the full marathon distance. It will not be possible to finish in our heat, in our temperature, in our moisture without taking additional electrolytes. But this is my personal advice. If you prefer to take 100 plus, make sure that you know how much will be 100 gram of 100 plus, if I'm not mistaken, is about 80 kilocalories or something. So a half cup of 100 plus, you have to look it up. Unfortunately, I don't have it here, but it has a nutrition information panel on it. So you need to be mindful that it will be served in half cups. So every half cup of 100 plus will probably be about like 50 kilocalories of energy. So you need to know your energy expenditure. You need to make sure that if you drink it, you are mindful about not over drinking it, and you bundle up with gel. So it's very personal. Okay, another question. Is it okay to ask my friend out there in Singapore, sorry, to have us register for 10K? Sorry, I'll skip that. I don't really know that. Hello, tip 1 Jimmy. Yes. Hi Jimmy, that was a good comment. During training, let's say on 180, Sherwin Manarin. During training, let's say on 180 min run, 3-hour run. Okay, that's a good training. What are you training for? Joking. Is it better to take any energy gels for a beginner who is the first timer who will run a full marathon? It depends. If you're doing, like, it's 25 days before the race. So if I was your nutrition, if I was your kind of like buddy long before, I would say that you need to do a mix of few. So you need to do some of the, you need to probably do some of the really slow runs without taking anything for even 3 hours, and like just morally motivate yourself. But again, I need to assert like what's your weight, what's your energy expenditure, what's your pace, so that you are able to make use of the triglycerides, so you're not pushing hard, because 3 hours you can push it at one pace that will not give you the amount of oxygen needed to activate the triglycerides in your muscles. Or you can do it in another pace. You can run it like at 5 minutes an hour. Yeah, even beginner can run for 3 hours at 5 minutes an hour, but then it'll be quite painful. But you can still try to do that. But if you're doing that at say 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes an hour, and you're doing that slow, even 8 minutes an hour, you will actually use your triglyceride store, so you can actually avoid even taking energy gels. But again, it's very personal. For now, since your question is not put into context, I would assume that you're speaking about your training now. For now, 25 days before, I highly recommend you to get accustomed to a brand of gel that you will use in the marathon. So do not skip out. Do not like do any of the smarts about activating your triglycerides. Just throw in a gel every, like, usual good calculation is 200 calories an hour, and then depending on your race pace, depending on your readiness, physical conditioning, this will be like 3-hour marathon or 5-hour marathon, doesn't matter. But like 200 calories an hour is a good kind of estimate. Another way to calculate it is 1 kilogram of body mass needs 1 kilogram for 1 kilometer needs 1 kilocalorie. So if you're like an 80 kilogram athlete, to run 10K, you need, how many calories you need? 800. Is it? Is it about that? Yes, everyone suggests it is. So that's something that you use overall to move the body. So if you're fully prepared, as I've mentioned, the ability of our bodies to store glycogen is limited to about like 400. The amount of glycogen in the body is 400 grams. 1 gram of glycogen stores 4 grams of 4 calories. So you have like this energy reserve, which is 1.6 thousand calories in your body. If you deplete it, if you're not able to activate another source of energy, which is fat, if you deplete it, you will hit the wall. This is something that's just called hitting the wall. So you need to take calories from some source, which is usually the energy gel or sugar-rich drink. That's kind of like very high-level theory. So I hope that explains. 200 calories an hour is a good, safe energy intake to plan for. For beginners, just remember that 2 gels or 1.5 gel an hour is good. Right, more questions. I like these questions. I keep on sending them. What kind of food to take during race? I always get hungry around the halfway mark. Wong, this is a very good question. So the way to not feel hungry, hunger is a physiological term, and appetite is a psychological term. So if you're really hungry, if you're not feeling like craving for food because you're accustomed to, that means that you've been skipping breakfast before. So my advice is to teach yourself, have a hearty breakfast. And again, I will post the link that we develop for the recipes that we developed together with Ironman and Stand Chart Singapore Marathon guys for this year. I will post it in the comment section below. But the idea is have a filling breakfast with a lot of carbohydrate, but at the same time quite a big fiber content. The fiber lingers in your stomach and it saturates you for a longer time. So you need to have, this is not unusual for athletes, like we advocate for oatmeal. Oatmeal loaded up with some chia seeds, with some honey, that will fill you up on the race morning so that you are not feeling the hunger. And then again, if you're aiming for like a cutoff mark of this year marathon, I don't even know how long it is, but like I hope you're trying to, you will try to finish it within like 6 hours, probably, even if it's your first one. I hope you're trying to make it out of 4, but okay, so regardless of that, you can actually avoid taking any supplementary food with you and just like fill yourself up with some snacks on the way. There will be 3 stations on full marathon. course that have banana. These are the same stations where will be the shots gels. So you can have bananas there if you're really craving for that. But my advice is do not overcomplicate. Just prepare the race morning. Okay, I'm going through the questions. How should I prepare my sleep pattern for the 42 km? Well, Matthew Yip, that's a good question. I would highly recommend sleeping as much as possible. Okay, so that actually leads us. We already talked about the taper week. So for those of you that run 42K, for those of you that run a full marathon, or maybe like for the first timers doing half a marathon, I'll get to the sleep question in a second. What I highly recommend doing is two things. First, make sure that you top up your glycogen stores the night before. Better off 2 nights before. There's something called carbohydrate loading. It's quite simple. The idea behind it, we talked about your calorie intake, estimated energy requirements, plus the plan for your week of training during the taper week before the race. Make sure that on 2 days before the start, make sure that about 70% of your calorie intake is fulfilled by carbohydrates. This is easy. You may consider like 4 kilocalories and 1 gram of carbohydrates. Take a look at your favorite dishes, how much carbohydrate they contain. So take your estimated energy requirements in the last 2 days. Make sure you top up your glycogen stores as much as possible. I would say a rough estimate that people agree on is about 7 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. This is something that is very important to do on the without exceeding the energy requirements. Again, you should not gain extra weight. Make sure that you're within that calculated ER plus your physical activity, like calories out balance. So by doing that, you top up your glycogen stores. This is the kind of like short-term energy stores that we have in our bodies. The night before will deplete glycogen, because when we are asleep, our body still functions to support our body's temperature, to support the functions of the brain, to support the different activity of our internal organs. The body still uses glycogen. So that's why the breakfast of the pre-race breakfast is the kind of like last chance to top up your glycogen stores once again. This is very important. Now, we talked about the 2 days before topping up with glycogen. Evening before the race, I suggest to stop eating at about 6 p.m., not later. 6 p.m., not later. Carbo loading, what we've just discussed. Make sure that you give your body time to digest the food and give yourself a very decent sleep. You should like aim for maybe 9 hours if possible. If you can squeeze for 9 hours, think about it. It's like 6 p.m. The race starts at 5. You want to wake up maybe about is it 5 this year as well, right? 4:30. Okay, 4:30, half hour earlier. Whoa. Okay, let's calculate it together. So if you have 4:30 for the start, assuming it will take you some time to kind of feel full and metabolize your breakfast, I would suggest that you have breakfast maybe 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours before the start time. So let's take it 3 hours. So take your brekkie, feeling brekkie, before the race at about 1:30 to 2 a.m., not later. Why? I'll tell you why. So wake up even earlier before brekkie. Make sure that you leave some time for your morning motion. And then from, say, if you wake up at like 1:30, you then need at least like 7 hours of sleep. We don't have 9 this year. Okay, 7 hours of sleep. 1:30 means that you have to go to bed right about like 7 o'clock. It's a good time. Give yourself a decent rest. Compound your sleep. If you're not able to do that, compound your sleep through that week. Make sure that you have enough 7+ hours on average per day to get you only restore your muscles efficiently when you are at sleep. And if you're like training for the marathon, you really want to have your fresh muscles on the start of the day. Now, about the morning motion, it's very important. This year there will be lots of additional potties, but I mean, we should talk about that. Hey, this is a very serious topic, really. If you didn't have a chance to talk to your coach or your running buddies about the race morning, I will tell you that. You will probably feel hyped. There will be a lot of people around you, and you may have like your stomach problems and like running stomach and all these kind of symptoms. Make sure that you plan for that. So try to do kind of, we call it emptying out. The athletes are very simple term people, and they call the emptying out of passengers emptying out of passengers. So make sure that you're not running with passengers. So empty out as early as possible. If you do have some habits, move your habits like a little bit earlier. Give yourself more time. Also plan for at least additional second choice potty on the way. So if you're arriving, you know which station, you know which bus will you take. You will drop off a car somewhere. Plan through that route if there is any public open toilet or maybe a hotel lobby or something. Plan through. Make sure that you're not relying only on those potties at the start line. So you want to make sure that that there is a plan A, plan B, and ideally you don't need them to kind of like empty out on the race morning. So okay, we talked about having a brekkie 2.5, 3 hours before the start. You really need to hydrate on that morning, and if you overhydrate, our body will actually just move the extra liquids away. It's very easy. So what I advise is like take an excessive amount of water, but do it early enough so you have time to again hit the plan A or plan B potty, and not do the full motion, but at least like empty out the extra liquids. So plan for good rehydration, maybe about 1.5 hours before the race starts. So that will take you about 1 hour for your body to kind of do the water balance, understand what's excessive, what's not, and maybe you will hit that potty. So give yourself extra time so there is no stress, because you really don't want to, you know, kind of run to the start line from the potty's location. I'm dead serious. It's going to be your A race. You'll be very excited, and you want to think over these details in advance. So that's number 2 thing. I really prefer to have one energy gel just 5 minutes before the start line, and for that I probably want to plan to have some water with me, or tap on someone else's water, or have supporter that will pass me the bottle of water or a cup of water. There will be water on the start line. You will be able to find it, but like if you just take an energy gel and you don't rinse your mouth, you may have a little bit of I think demotivating kind of like condition. Also, please make sure that you brush your teeth the race morning. Like there's nothing more motivating, especially for those of you that never done it before. Long run, there's nothing more demotivating than like a strong sense of unbrushed teeth, and like you need to run with all these people around you. You want to get into the groove, you want to feel happy, you want to feel hyped. Your heart rate will go up. You will have, if you're running with a heart rate monitor, you will see like an enormous figure because you have an adrenaline kick. There'll be like lots of music, a lot of supporters on the run, on the race run. So you really want to stay happy and like fulfill your plan. So think through the day before. When do you start? When do you stop eating to give your body enough time to metabolize food? Think through the good sleep. Think through your brekkie. About 2.5, 3 hours before the start, I suggest you have like a very hearty oatmeal, and I'll send the link afterwards. About 1.5 hour before the race, hydrate yourself. 2 hours even, like hydrate yourself to the max. Make sure that you give your body time to adjust the water balance. It will just take out the extra liquids. Do not underestimate the morning motion. You really want to think through how your passengers will be kind of let go. This is very important because you don't want to run through 8 stations with running stomach. And yeah, have a plan B. Even if you're like hitting the start line, all those toilets and whatnot, but have a plan B in mind. Okay, I'll quickly go through the other comments if there's anything else. Let me see. Quite often I do Swed Al-Edrus. Quite often I do a back-to-back run event. What would be the best way to recover from the first run before going into the next day run? what distance, what pace, what conditions. Again, there's a lot more to know about that. I apologize for it, but like it could be a short event and you don't need to recover, right? Okay, I was advised to avoid milk, though I take it quite commonly. Is it true? Milk is a carbohydrate source. Why not? I mean, it's a protein source. Again, if you don't have any lactose intolerance or something like that, why would you avoid it? There is a lot of here and say here and there, so assess it from your personal medical conditions first. If you don't have any negative prescriptions, then assess it whether it will give you an amount of like unhealthy amount of calories proportionate to its volume. Milk will probably not. It depends on how many glasses of milk, like if you think by glass, like how many glasses of milk you drink habitually by day. Maybe it makes sense to reduce, you know, all the successive sources of milk, like those like latte drinks and cappuccino drinks, just because you have too much milk. But if you're habitually taking like a glass of 2 of milk a day, like why not? It's a good source of protein as well, and calcium. And I'm about to wrap up this this broadcast, but please keep on posting your questions into the session. 2 last questions. Is it advisable to go on a food ban, fried food, etc., the week before the run? I don't know what is a food ban. There is no such term. I assume you mean like stop eating? No, please do not stop eating. Okay, if you particularly mean fried food, yes, it is advisable to exclude fried food generally, and you should have probably done it many months before, because fried food, especially deep fried food, it saturates the first of all, it destroys the fiber content, and your basically saturation level from the same amount. If you take like a potato, it's very satiating if it's boiled. If you take the same potato and you slice it into the thin wedges and then you deep fry them, you will kill the satiating properties of the fiber in it, and also you will dense it up with extra calories and saturated fat that you not necessarily need at all. So fried food is at the bottom of the food intake, and I highly recommend to avoid it generally, not only before the race. How to avoid stomach bloating, hiccups during marathon running? That was the last question, and it was from Sunny Lee. So okay, how to avoid stomach bloating? I would say don't take an unprepared breakfast. Make sure you empty out on the race morning and do it diligently. Make sure that if you have a morning, you know that normally, like, it's very individual, but if you know that normally in the morning it takes you a long time to kind of pass the motions, there are some things that you can do to accelerate your morning motion on the race morning. So pass it all out. Do not take excessive amount of liquid. So do not overhydrate. Give yourself time to do the water balancing, and then do not drink excessive amount of liquid through 8 stations. Drink by thirst, not by your psychological desire to have a drink. And then third, avoid taking too much caffeine. A lot of people have runny stomach because of caffeine. It's very individual reaction. Try yourself the gel that you will use on the race morning through the race. Try it now. Try it next week to make sure that its caffeine content and just its taste is your body is accustomed to it. You're not having a depression. You're not having like a low when you're doing that. All right. So please keep on posting your questions into the comment section of this video. I will go through them one by one, and I will throw in a link to the best breakfast that we recommend at Food Buddy. Reach out to myself on Facebook. It's Food Buddy. Does it say Food Buddy? Yes, it says Food Buddy. So like that page. Stay tuned. Stay productive. 25 days to go. Good luck to everybody, and beat your own personal best record. Go for it.